The Saguaro. I found the desert moon all-consuming. Arizona was a lonely living splendor, just like me. I walked on the desert sand barefoot and free, picking up on the cue of collective memory. I befriended a wise old grandfatherly saguaro that, like a regimented soldier, guarded the school. He stood on the path directly behind the dorms, a silent, hollow-eyed fellow who greeted those who came and saluted those who departed from a well-worn yet unadvertised path that angled its way out into the desert. I persuaded the stars to divulge their magic to me. What appeared to others to be a constellation of Hercules became my mother when I was 3. I would sit on the living room floor of our University Hills tract home and watch my mother iron. High up on the mantle and way above my little girl head was the cardboard train we brought home with us as proof we had eaten at the Denver Drumstick restaurant. Why the train was kept out of my reach is an unknown to me now. Perhaps because it was nap time and my mother didn't want me to be tempted by it. Chip and Deanna had persuaded my mom to let them nap together, which only meant they were going to sneak out the bedroom window and go play around the neighborhood, a habit Deanna didn't let go of ever. Deanna was the type who would do only what she wanted. She would lie, cheat, and steal if she had to, and could absolutely justify it. But she was honest about the things that were important in life and too tough to argue with about any of it. She was definitely an incest child screaming out, help me, I'm in pain." Her antics were in direct relation to Hammond's twisted ways. She was a river of honesty, an island of truth, a ravishing Venus in the making. She was all of 5 years old when she stole some of Daddy's gold pieces out of his desk drawer and tootied on down to the 5 and dime called Piggly Wiggly to make a score. Into the gumball machine went the money, and without regret, Deanna headed on home. When Daddy discovered his missing money and put together all the pieces of the story, he was livid. Deanna got spanked in the den with Daddy's big hand. I was barely born, so I was unaware of the fury my father was feeling toward my sister, Deanna. Deanna was in one fix after another, always seeking attention from her father, trying to communicate through her many naughty actions that there was something rotten in Denmark, but she was too young to word it like Shakespeare. The legendary beauty of Denver was introduced to a big rock star at age 16 and went away to get married. If there's any truth to the statistics that say incest survivors flee the scene of the crime, trying to leave behind all that triggers their panic, then Deanna was textbook. The problem was, however, that the marriage wasn't a fair one. The rock star husband was much older than Deanna, and with her heart in his pocket, proceeded to destroy her young mind. I hear his songs on commercial advertisements to date, and am sickened by the prosperity he still experiences, while my sister is still struggling. He has millions. She has nada. He used his wily world experience that way. How unfair, I say. She was only 18 when he divorced her and sent her on her way. Her spirit was crushed from the mismanagement of all her youth by her husband, who will definitely understand one day the cause and effect of his actions. He always considered me a poet and encouraged me in every way to keep on writing, no matter what obstacles stood in my way. He said to me, and I'll never forget it, that the only way to make it in this world was to believe in yourself with so much conviction that nobody or nothing could stop you. Rock solid determination was the formula and the only way to win. I just wished he had found a way to mix some compassion into his potion. My sister might have been a pain, but taking care of a rock star husband and all the members of his band was a mighty big burden for a girl so young. I was crushed when my sister called to tell me they were getting a divorce. He really meant a lot to me. He gave me my very first $100 bill, which I pulled out from my stocking at Christmas and stood staring at in shock, and then broke down crying. I was wowed beyond belief to be the recipient of so much money. He was a male figure I tried to latch onto, but unfortunately, I lost him too. Only Hammond was here to stay. The ironing board was the most menacing creature in my environment. It kept my mother from me. It was an iron shield she put up against the world, and she built quite a ritual around it. First, there was the spray bottle that she used to dampen the cotton shirts. For what seemed like an eternity, she would lay out Daddy's shirts and splash each piece with a quick jerk from her wrist that released just enough water from her spray bottle to moisten them. And then she would roll them up and pile them in a big heap until she had a mountain of white cotton shirts to choose from. She then started in on the ironing, shirt by shirt. It was aggravating to watch her, as if a soul didn't have something better to do than all this laundering. And she was ever so painstakingly meticulous about it, as if her entire identity was wrapped up in those shirts. And in many ways, it was. Little did she realize I would grow up to recognize her spray bottle full of water as a symbol of her freedom, her feminine mystique. In her hands, she held a river. When I looked up at the Arizona sky, I envisioned my mother, and I saw the water splashing down from her plastic water bottle onto the clothes like a waterfall, cascading recklessly in a formation most people mistook for the Big Dipper. Perhaps in the desert, I began to realize my mother's power. The eternal moment became more than just theory. Past, present, and future surged through me as I created a vision of a society where people had clarity and freedom. I focused on the children and freed them one by one, just like Harriet Tubman returned to the South in order to lead more and more people out of slavery. I vowed to help millions once I was free. As the sky opened up to me, I remembered my mother's face of sadness and times not too free. I remembered somewhere beneath the stars and in her arms, the river stopped to breathe. And as I began to forgive my mother for her failures, I realized them as my own, and I wanted to be forgiven with all my heart and soul.